An enemy has been slain. Enemy tower destroyed. Ally has been slain. Ally double kill. An enemy has been slain.
What's going on, guys? It's Killswitch here. Just want to start by saying appreciate all the love for the channel. Appreciate all the new subscribers and everything. Glad you guys are enjoying the content. I know there's some gaps in content here lately. You know, life happens, and then sometimes the games don't always turn out the way you want them to. But I'll continue pumping out videos when I can. But I figured I would give you guys something a little new here. Might be a series I start on this channel. Gonna do a hero overview here today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today I'm gonna start with our boy Kwang. Gonna do a little overview and maybe some tips and tricks to kind of play him in the off lane. Let's hit our learn tab up here and check it out.
I'll go.
So over here on Kwang, give you your base stats. Pretty standard stuff here. Really what I was going to kind of go over is the abilities and kind of like how and when to use them, what they do, maybe a little more in detail. I've been getting some questions and stuff lately on how to play Kwang, or, you know, what's the best build, what aspects do I pick, that type of thing. So I figured I'd just go ahead and do a little tutorial video. And also, before we get into this, I'm not saying by any means that I'm the greatest Kwang player ever or anything like that. Played a decent amount, almost diamond, but do know the kit pretty well, so let's get into it. First off, we've got his Judgment of the Heavens, which is his, that's his Q, depending on your keybinds, but that is his tether. So that's where he throws his sword, deals energy damage, and tethers the target to the sword. Recently, this was changed a little bit with the cooldown and stuff with the latest patch. But basically, this is going to be your kill secure and or your jump in to the team fights if you're late. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll use this traverse wall between, you know, through walls with this teleport if I have to. Say I'm coming in to mid lane or something from off lane and there's a team fight going on. Well, maybe I don't go all the way around through the entrances to the jungle. Maybe I just go straight up to the wall, cue this on the other side of the wall, and teleport in. You know, give a little bit of element of surprise there. But yeah, basically that's going to be your get in or kill secure, whichever. His E ability, Power of the Heavens. So this is going to be kind of your main damage dealer ability. This is where he does the line of electric shock or zap or thunderbolts, whatever you want to call it. But this is going to deal the most damage out of all your abilities, and also it's going to shred energy armor as well, so it's a good ability to start with. It also does the line, it does the ability to the tether as well. So if you throw your sword, wherever your sword is, if you hit E, it'll zap to that location. So if you've got somebody tethered, it'll deal that damage to them as well. This is what I always lead with in fights typically, because when you go into an engagement with somebody, especially in a one-on-one and off lane, they're not typically going to lead with an ability either. It's kind of one of those things where we'll get into the right mouse button here in a little bit, but typically going into an engagement, you want to save that right mouse button for shielding of a big ability. Like say a Greystone, say you're facing a Greystone in off lane, and he wants to hit you with that disarm ability. Well, he's probably not going to lead with that. He might, but more often than not, he's probably going to start with his Q, right? So then you just kind of like back out of that and then re-engage after his Q's up, after his spin to win, if you will, is up. I'll typically jump in there, start with the E, and then probably right after go ahead and follow up with that right mouse button, because he's more than likely going to hit you with that disarm after that. And that'll shield that, as well as still being able to deal damage between the gap of being disarmed. But yeah, typically E, that's going to be your initiating ability because of the armor shred. So if you can hit that and then hit your right mouse button while that armor is shredded, or even do a full combo, you know. The combo used to be tether, E, right mouse button, and then ult if you have it. I think maybe that meta has shifted a little bit to keeping that sword in your hand, starting with the E, maybe right mouse button, and then tether and ult if they try to run away. Kind of depends on the situation, but typically I will just hold that sword in hand, initiate with E, and go from there. So next ability here, it's going to be your ultimate, your Fury of the Heavens. That's your teleport. So wherever your sword is tethered to, you will teleport if you use your ultimate. So it's going to deal damage and slow, but also if you use this in hand, it's not as reliable, I guess you should say. I've had plenty of times where I try and use this ultimate while the sword's in my hand, and the enemy just gets out of the way of it. The slow isn't enough to keep them like right there in that area of effect for the sword in hand. So typically I'll save this for like a kill secure with the tether. Say I go in, I E, I right mouse button, I get a few autos in, or maybe it's a team fight and they're taking damage and so they back out, right? And so I'll typically save that ultimate to try and secure that kill with my tether if they're running away. Now if it's a group fight and you've got a couple enemies low, maybe their frontliners are low or something like that, and you're sitting there, you're brawling with them, maybe you hold that sword in hand and you just do it right there at the front line. That might help secure a couple more kills. You know, it's pretty situational, but that's generally how I use it. Is I'll typically save it for the engagement, or if I don't need it for actual engagement, I'll save it for kill secure if someone's running away, or if someone like say a frontliner is low but they're chasing your backliner, say they're chasing your twin blast. I can use that also, kind of stand right in front of them as a body block and then hit them with that. It'll deal some damage, it'll slow them up, and it'll also make them think twice about diving that back line. So again, situational, but that's kind of how I would use it usually. Auto attack here, that's just basic slice. Nothing really special about this. Something to mention though is that it is possible to still build a tank / energy damage build with Kwang and still kind of buff up your basic attack a little bit with the Mage's crossbow. I don't see it ran too much. I've ran it a few times. It's kind of a more of an interesting little experimental build type of thing. I've ran it a couple of times when I've been really far ahead. Just because I know I'm not necessarily hurting as bad for health or armor or anything like that. But again, situational. That's 95% of this game is situational. So, I mean, there's no set in stone way to do anything. Just whatever the situation calls for. Maybe you've got a steel jungle and he's going tank. You could kind of experiment with some more damage if you wanted to. Especially if you're running like a double green aspect, like a Beast Hunter Titan or a Beast Hunter Rook or whatever it is, you're going to be pretty naturally tanky anyways. So maybe throw in some energy damage or whatever it may be. Let's move on to the right mouse button here. So this is going to be kind of your bread and butter, honestly. This is probably Kwang's best ability, or tied for best ability here, because he gets to deal energy damage, and also if the sword is in hand, of course, his right mouse button will deal damage and shield you. It'll give you an overshield. And this lasts for 2 seconds. So this could be huge for a fight, right? So I've used this plenty of times to save myself from a big enemy ability, or even if you're trying to kill secure and you go under tower and you get that last hit to finish off an enemy hero, you can use this on your way out so you don't take, that last tower shot that might kill you. You can shield that. Potentially, so it's one of those things where, yeah, it deals damage. It deals a pretty good amount of damage. I think with the last patch, they increased the energy damage scaling on it, but it's still a utility ability. So just remember that. A lot of Kwangs will do is they'll use this as an initiator early on. So you say you're in the laning phase. You've got a Greystone in front of you. The Greystone doesn't have any energy armor or anything like that. So basically you're going to go in, obviously with your managed minion wave, but you're going to go in, you're going to hit that right mouse button in the vicinity of that Greystone, deal some damage. Then you're going to brawl, do some auto attacks. Maybe you have your E unlocked, whatever it is. Like I said, I typically will start with the E and then right mouse button to maximize that damage. But early on, this is probably going to be the first ability you buy, just because it's an AoE, and also the shielding can help keep you alive a little bit. But yeah, you can right mouse button into a fight. You can E into a fight, just kind of situational. But I love this ability. It's saved me plenty of times. Really, probably his best ability if you want my opinion on it. Passive, Gifted the Heavens. Kwang is blessed from the heavens, gaining lifesteal and spell vamp. That's pretty big too. I believe this was also buffed in the last patch as well. I believe his base health regen was lowered. His base mana regen was upped a little bit, and then his spell vamp and lifesteal were upped as well. That's pretty big because that adds to his sustain in lane. The one problem with Kwang before seemed to be that he would either run out of mana too fast, especially with his abilities, and also if you were unable to get green buff, you were kind of stuck there, especially if they're bullying you a little bit there, and you can't. So now let's jump get in there and swing on some items a little bit, kind of a build or so possibilities. This is also Kwang. Really big. Remember, still spell vamp, so you're gonna want to remember that with heroes, with abilities, with kits. There's always going to be every ability you land is going to give you health back. Of course, it's 30% effective on area of effect for each hero, but everything is subjective. His abilities, so but if you find something that works better for your health, you're getting back. Do that. What works best for me, and what kind of seems to be the consensus of the best builds for Kwang are going to be, and this is of course off lane again, jungle or mid lane. Kwang is a thing. I'm not really going to go over those too much. I'm mostly going to focus on off lane. But how you're going to want to start is typically it's going to recommend you the Titan's armor and a small health pot. That's a solid build. But something I've been tinkering with lately is going spellbook and small health pot. So if you look at Titan's armor, right? It gives you this cool little passive. You get some additional health regen for 5 seconds, blah, blah, blah. It's helpful, but To me, earlier on, this energy power, you get the same amount of health base, by the way, but this energy power and the mana regen, that seems to be more helpful to me for sustain in the lane, because you already have that life steal and that spell vamp. So adding a little bit of damage while getting the same amount of health and then being able to get that mana regen, to me that helps with sustain, because the more mana you have, the more you can just sit there, in lane, kind of, they call it AFK farm, but basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to keep that enemy offlaner. You're going to try and starve them of farm while you farm. You need mana to do that so you can hit your abilities, especially if you just keep over and over hitting that right mouse button, shielding yourself, getting some minion kills, and hopefully dealing some damage to the enemy offlaner. So lately I've been starting Spellbook, small health pot, and then after that, depending on how the game goes, it's always going to depend on how the game goes, but and don't ever go boots first. I know that's kind of a big thing right now. I've seen a lot of people going boots first. I wouldn't advise going boots first unless you're facing like maybe a steal in off lane or a mage in off lane. So if you get a mage in off lane, you're probably, what I usually do is I rush these inertia wraps boots for the energy armor, but also that endurance on the CC, right? So if you're facing like a Bellica off lane or a steal off lane or even a crunch off lane, you'll want the trade-off for buying your first card being inertia wraps for the 1100 gold and getting that little bit of energy armor early, I think is a better trade than having to go into a full item first for energy armor. Energy armor is good to have, but these inertia wraps boots, that little bit of energy armor and the endurance to CC, I feel like that's the perfect amount for early game without having to trade off your first item being an energy armor card. The first card I typically go into after that, if I'm facing a regular offlaner like a Greystone or a Boris or a Chimera or whatever it may be, a Grux, my first card I'm going to rush is Baleful. Specifically, the first card I'm going to get is going to be the Sigil of Fervor. This is going to help you with your wave clear. This is going to help you deal a little extra damage. It's basically going to help you bully a little bit harder. Say worst case scenario, say you have to back at 4 or 5 minutes. If you've got over 1,000 gold to spend, immediately go back, buy this card. It's going to help you out tremendously. If you have more, that's great. If you can buy this right off the rip, even better. That's going to put you in a really good position. So in a typical circumstance, I'm going to go Spellbook, small health pot, and then my first card that I'm going to rush is Baleful Armor. Now, if you're facing the before mentioned, like I said, it's going to be Spellbook, small health pot, and then the one circumstance where you'll want to get some boots is, again, Steel, Bellica, Crunch, any hard CC or energy damage offlaner. Inertia Wraps is a good card to rush in that situation. But then after that, it's still going to be Baleful Armor. That's going to be your first card after that. So, again, speaking with normal circumstances in the offlane, it's going to go Bale. Whichever boots in that scenario you would need, typically it's going to be your Stoic Greaves for the basic attack damage and the physical armor. That's good against like a Greystone or a Grux or whoever it may be. And then after that, a good card to grab is either for a tankier approach or a utility approach. You can go into Fountain of Invigoration or Ring of Rejuvenation. I like both of these cards on Kwang. Fountain, that's going to help your lifesteal and your spell vamp. It's going to give you health, energy armor, health regen, and cooldown reduction. So like it gives you a lot of stuff here. And then on top of it, it's going to increase your healing that you're getting from your life steal from your passive. So I love this card on him. I love this card on Chimera as well for that reason. But specifically for Kwang, it's a great card. Same for Ring of Rejuvenation. It's giving you some health, some energy armor, and some cooldown reduction. This one's more based towards like CC. This one could be a later game item depending on who you're facing in off lane. This one might be for like if they have a steel jungle or a steel support and a crunch jungle or something where you don't necessarily need the CC reduction now in lane, but you're going to need it later. So keep that one in the back of your head. Maybe you start with Fountain first, then you go Ring, or maybe you go Fountain another card, then Ring. Kind of situational again, but these two are really good. I probably would lean more towards this one if you're facing just a Greystone or something in lane, or a mage, just because of that healing bonus. If it is a mage in lane, that energy armor is going to help even more. So it's kind of a win-win there. But yeah, these two cards here, big ones after Baleful. If you want to go full tank build with Kwang in the off lane, the next card you're going to want is probably either going to be like a Blighted Chestplate or a Knight's Battle Plate, something along those lines, because you haven't built up a ton of physical armor, and especially if you went the Inertia Wraps, you're going to have more energy armor than physical armor. Situational again, but Knight's Battle Plate or Blighted Chestplate. Blighted Chestplate's going to give you a huge amount of physical armor there. Knight's is going to give you both. So it's kind of situational. This is a really good card for full tank build. That active is pretty good. And then your passives on the Blighted, those are going to be really good for being able to stay in a fight. Frontlining specifically, if you're just getting hit on basic attacks here, you're applying trauma to your attackers, and it's reducing incoming basic attack damage. So really good frontliner card. If you're going full tank, this is probably one I would throw in there as well. And then if, say, you wanted to go into more of a hybrid build, say you wanted to go with a little bit of energy damage on top of, you know, what you have. So say you've got Baleful, you've got Fountain or Ring, and say you wanted to, say you're doing really well in lane, say you're doing well in the team fights, you've got another tank slash frontliner that's doing a really good job in the team fights, you want to add a little extra, you know, punch to your kit. Couple of good cards I could recommend for you. Obviously Eldritch Flame. Eldritch Flame's a great card. Gives you health, CDR, and energy power, and a pretty good amount too. And then it's going to give you that burn on abilities, so it's pretty nice. I've been tinkering with Mage's Crossbow here. Gives you a good amount of energy power. It gives you basic attack speed and cooldown reduction, and then it gives the same on-hit effect of your basic attacks that like a Gravedigger's Crossbow would give you. I like this card for Kwang. I don't know that I could say it's like a meta build card, but it is an interesting one because he is a physical or a melee attacker. I enjoy it. It's kind of fun to do. It does feel impactful as well when you start seeing your autos hitting for a decent amount. When you're like a full energy damage build, it's pretty fun. But that's not necessarily a meta card. That's just kind of, I'm throwing that out there. Another good one is Warlock's Aegis. This is kind of a like a hybrid card as well. It's going to give you energy power, CDR, and energy armor, and that spell shield. That's a good one for Kwang because that's going to help increase his tankiness a little bit with that energy armor. It gives him that spell shield, and then you're still getting energy power for it, so you'll be doing a little bit more damage. And then Matter Limiter as well. So Matter Limiter is going to also kind of effectively do something similar. It's going to give you a good amount of energy power. It's going to give you health and mana. And then on abilities hit, it's going to slow your enemies. So another pretty good utility card. even as a frontliner, this is a pretty good one because it can help you secure kills for your team. It gives you that health and mana, so you're getting bonuses to that, and it helps you deal a little bit more damage. So those are some options. Of course, you have like your Cursed Remnant as well, your Apox, you know, Nerve Jewel even you could do. I don't love the Nerve Jewel on Kwang. It's a possibility, but I think I would probably go more for something like Cursed Remnant if I had to. Good amount of energy power. You get energy pen with this one as well. Some CDR and then some health. And then also you'll get some trauma to your target as well for this one. It's always good to have. You might run this maybe against like a Chimera, who, you know, an enemy team that's got a Chimera, or maybe you've got a Narbash support, or maybe the enemy team's ADC is kind of ahead and they've built their lifesteal already. It could just be something to keep in mind. Again, these builds are all situational, so just kind of giving you ideas for what you could use. You kind of apply it to the situation you're in. Another good card I like that doesn't get a whole lot of love is Thorn Shield, especially as a frontliner. So it's going to give you health, physical armor, and CDR. It's also going to protect you or give you a 20% reduction from critical hit damage. And then it's also going to essentially be a defensive like T-Fist, or a defensive like Gravedigger's Crossbow, where when you get hit with an basic attack, you're going to deal 18% of your total physical armor as energy damage. So like, if say you're facing a twin, right, twin blast, and they're just unloading on you, well, every shot that they hit on you, you're going to deal 18% of your physical armor to them. That's pretty good. I mean, that's like, you know, it kind of sounds like, well, man, I'm just going to stand there and get shot all game. Well, as a frontliner, that kind of happens from time to time. So nice to have that on your side if that's the case. Other than that, late game cards you could use, or like last item cards you could use. Pretty situational. You could go Safeguard Amulet. It doesn't give you much tankiness. It does give you some mana, and it does give you that that overdrive passive, where if you were to take health, that would put you into what is it? Taking damage that would put you in a critical condition. So I'm not entirely sure what that is. I think that's probably like 15% of your health or less. It'll give you that overshield. That's pretty nice, but I don't know that it would be worth necessarily trading out like one of these tankier cards or whatever. But situationally, you know, could work. Aegis Cataphract, that's also it's a decent frontliner card. It's kind of more of a utility card. Enemy heroes within that 650 unit radius have their attack speed reduced, which that's pretty cool. And then receiving basic attacks from enemy heroes reduces their attack speed by 3%. So, and that stacks up to 5 times. So that's kind of like, that would pair well with like your Thorn Shield and even your Blighted Chestplate. Like that right there is pretty good combo. Although it doesn't really give you a whole lot of offensive utility, it does give you quite a bit of defensive utility. So something to keep in mind. Outside of that, that's really what I would stick with. You could go, obviously, your main, like your heavy damage, like your energy power damage cards, but Kwang doesn't seem to benefit a ton from that stuff unless you just go full energy power, and then at that point you're kind of setting yourself up for a little bit of failure there, because off lane Kwang, you got the lifesteal, you've got the spell vamp. You kind of want to be more tanky. Like, he feels like more of a tanky hero to when you play him. I think that's kind of his natural niche, if you will. But again, situational. What works for you may not work for me. What works for me may not work for you. You know, if something works for you, say you use a full blue Kwang build, do it. Do what works for you. I've seen Siren's Call ran on Kwang. that works. It gives you energy power, it gives you CDR and mana. Passives, outgoing heals and shields are increased by 20%. That works with his right mouse button. That is a solid like utility card. Increase or 10% of your remaining shields you convert it into health after the shield expires. That works with Kwang's shielding. His right mouse button, that works. That's a possible card. Just kind of depends on what you feel like the situation calls for. So there's no like right or wrong build per se. Go with what makes sense. You have cards in here that are really good in general, and then you have cards that are maybe more targeted specifically at certain heroes, like your fountains with the healing increase. Do what feels right. Build how you want to build, but most importantly, remember, have fun. This is a game. It's not that deep. We're all here to have fun. Sure, we want to win games. We'd all love to win games, but doesn't always happen. So just remember, we're all here for fun. And don't be toxic either, please. Too much of that going on lately. So have fun. Hope this helped. If you guys like this, let me know. Let me know who you want next. Do you want me to do another hero? If you don't like it, let me know. I am always open to feedback. I'm pretty easygoing, so hit me with what you got. If you want to see more of these, let me know. Thanks, guys.